Okay.
Recording in progress.
There you go. That's my cue. Thank you, Joe, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June monthly meeting of the Community Board 11 Queens Transportation Committee. This evening we were going to have just a couple of things on the agenda. We have decided to dedicate the entire meeting. So the agenda that was circulated actually had a school safety PS 98 item, which we have decided to table to the next meeting. We want to dedicate this entire meeting this evening to the presentation from our friends at the Queens Office of the DOT and their revised proposal for the bicycle infrastructure, the bicycle lane network development plan. We've been working on this for years together, and this committee has done, I think, really fine work in representing our community to try to make these improvements to the bicycle and street safety infrastructure of our community district. So, as I said, this evening we're dedicated to the presentation. I don't know exactly how long you think the presentation part will take, but we will then follow up with questions and discussion from committee members only. We do want to be responsive to the public, but this is not the meeting for that. This is a transportation committee meeting. We have, I believe, most of our committee here tonight, and the committee will be asking the questions and engaged in discussion with our reps from DOT, and we appreciate their presentation and joining us tonight. So, Commissioner Silvestri, I'll turn it over to you, actually. That's going to be the plan for this evening.
Great. Thank you, Victor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good evening, everyone. And Victor, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Al Silvestri. I'm the Deputy Queensborough Commissioner at New York City DOT. And I'm here tonight with probably some familiar faces. My colleague, Greta Suarez from the Queens office. She's going to be running point on the presentation tonight. And also Ted Wright and Paolo Rubira from DOT's bicycle program are here tonight as well. So quickly, I'd like to take a moment to thank CB11 for your collaboration and advocacy here. It's not every day that we get the level of feedback that you gave us and the due diligence that you and I know the district manager and his team went through when we first came with a proposal. So that plan that we previously brought to the community, it's possible it could have been implemented already, but it was more important to this community and certainly to us to get it right. And with that detailed feedback that you gave us, we will tonight, I believe, be presenting a really robust plan for strong bike connections in Community Board 11, including protected bike lanes, and all of the traffic calming and safety benefits that come with them and the other treatments that we have. So Greta will be taking us through the revised proposal, and I think it's accomplished many of the goals that we in the committee share, which is bringing robust connections to some of the great amenities in this community and the safety benefits, which really are the overarching theme behind all of our work. So, Victor, as you said, we'll happy to take as many questions at the end. It's a good presentation. I don't think it'll take too long, but with that, I'll kick it over to Greta.
Thank you, Al. It is great to be back here. I really enjoyed the last conversation we had. I saw more as a discussion, and certainly all the feedback that you provided that Al already highlighted has only made this revised proposal more robust. So let's begin. So for some background, let's just do a quick flashback to what DOT proposed previously. In Northeast Queens, I want to point out that it has so many wonderful neighborhood amenities that need to be connected by cycling infrastructure, and we see that value and necessity here of building out the network. For background, the discussion about extending the on-street network started here through the Destination Greenways plan led by NYC Parks. For that plan, Parks Department is focused focus more inside the parks to bring capital improvements to the Eastern Queens Greenway, while DOT is prioritizing the on-street connections to the inland parks and the greenways. So DOT came to you last fall, October 21st, 2021, with a standard and share lane network that had minimal parking impact. You can see that here in the map that the shared lanes are the pink and the blue lanes are the standard lanes, and that matches the cross sections at the bottom of the page. But we're back here tonight because you asked us for upgrades and to see more protected paths. So that's what we're going to focus on and discuss. Now, in response to the DOT proposal, Community Board 11 sent a letter to DOT in January of this year with recommendations for upgrades to the network. You can see that here reflected in the map. The content of that letter in green dash is the request for the protected bicycle lanes, PBLs for short, utilizing floating parking. And those are the segments for part of Corporal Kennedy, Oceana Street, 26th Avenue, 28th Avenue, as you pointed out in the letter, Utopia Parkway, which has been a long-standing request of the board, 46th Avenue, Cloverdale Boulevard, a segment of 56th Avenue, 69th Avenue, and finally 53rd Avenue. In red dash on the map are the requests of what to not implement from the previous DOT plan. So that includes 35th Avenue and the connection through 221st Street that will connect to Northern Boulevard, Springfield Boulevard, and 188th Street. We heard you loud and clear, and I think the takeaway here is that you want more protected bike lanes. You made that also, very prevalent in the discussions that we've had since. And again, I want to thank you for all of your effort. I think, as Al pointed out at the beginning of this meeting, you've gone above and beyond by forming a subcommittee and taking the time to evaluate where you wanted to see the upgrades and providing such substantial feedback. It is not every day the DOT sees and takes that feedback in from the community. So I really appreciate that. It's made my job easier for sure. So we want to improve the network as well, and that's why we're here tonight. I want to take a moment to look at this map without the segments that you requested to not implement. So what this map has is we took away the red lines. And the benefits of this is that it's really exciting to see the advocacy for more protected bike lanes. You can see that in all of the green in this map. We again really appreciate the support to improve the network in Northeast Queens. And additionally, as I said it last fall, but I'll say it again, DOT is currently developing a Utopia Parkway PBL, which will continue to present to you separately. So there's another commitment that we made to you for protected lanes here. I will not go into detail into Utopia Parkway this evening, but that's a commitment again that we made to you already. And of course, we all see the benefits here of improving the connections to the Greenway. Now, some issues with the upgrade requests that I do want to point out are the gaps in the network, and you can see that here in the circles in gray. Bikes are like cars in that you can't just abruptly end a guided path because it would be very disorienting for the cyclist, and that's an example that you can see on 56th Avenue where it connects to the East Hampton PBL, and it gets dropped off at Springfield Boulevard without a connection. We want to make sure that we create a safe and well-connected network here. So I know that your request is mainly for upgrading the network to protected bike lanes, but given the irregular grid and narrow roadway of this area, I want to put in a plug for the standard and shared lanes because they can provide wayfinding and dedicated space where cyclists, where PBLs are not feasible, and especially it allows for bridging the gaps in the network that we see here. One of the things we notice in this map is the lack of east-west connections and the removal of Springfield Boulevard, which cuts off a connection to the Vanderbilt Motor Parkway. And also there is just another gap for 69th Avenue where there is not connected to anything. And finally, you requested specifically for protected bike lanes utilizing floating parking. That's like something that you highlighted a lot in the letter. But PBLs require some trade-offs, such as parking impact or travel lane removal, depending on the roadway geometry. So we'll talk more about what goes into a PBL. This is a typical design for a PBL. Of course, like you advocated for the protected bike lanes because they fully separate the cars and bikes and increase safety for all road users by not only shortening the pedestrian crossing distance, but also improving visibility for pedestrians. But it typically, again, requires the trade-offs of parking removal, reducing travel lanes, or converting a street to a one-way. I want to bring your attention to the cross-section at the bottom of the slide. You can see here that the typical two-way street with a PBL standard is 54 feet wide, where we have 11 feet travel lanes, and a feet parking lane, a buffer of at least 3 feet, and then the bike lane is 5 feet. Few of the roadways in CB11 are actually 54 feet wide and fit this criteria. So we have explored additional options to bring more protected paths into these narrow streets. And I want you to keep that in mind to inform our conversation about the protected bike lanes that we're able to bring into CB11. And again, the way that we have thought about this being informed by our PBL criteria. Okay, now what are you waiting for? So we are presenting again a revised proposal that builds off the feedback we received from you and provides connections to all of the amenities in the neighborhood. So let me walk you through some of the changes. First, we're keeping a continuous connection on Corporal Kennedy and Oceana Street. This is basically, at least I see it as the spinal cord of the network that runs north-south and is a very vital connection. Second, we're also keeping Springfield Boulevard instead of Cloverdale Boulevard. Cloverdale Boulevard is close to the existing East Hampton Boulevard PBL, and therefore Springfield Boulevard can provide more balance in the network and serve as a loop that will feed into the existing bike facilities and greenway. Springfield Boulevard is also the second north-south route in the proposal, and it provides an important connection to neighborhood amenities such as the Queensboro Community College, which serves over 14,000 students. This way, we can also maintain a direct connection to the 69th Avenue bike lane that we are proposing to expand, and also the Vanderbilt Motor Parkway, so there can be a direct connection to that. Third, we understand that the board asked to not implement 35th Avenue and to not explore further an east-west connection in this area. We thought hard about this and took a special look at a different treatment to provide a corridor calming project on 33rd Avenue instead. This is going to be slightly different treatment than what you've seen before, so I'm hoping you keep an open mind until we can, we'll speak more to the design later, but the gist of it here is that we want to enhance and stay true to the character of this community street and slow down vehicles, discourage cut-through traffic, while also increasing pedestrian and cyclist safety. And finally, another takeaway from this upgraded map is that we took out 188th Street, as you asked. Now you can see the types of bike facilities in the map based on the color here on the right. The protected bike lanes stand out in green. You asked for more protection, and we're bringing it to you on 26, let me put the highlighter, on 26th Avenue, segments of Corporal Kennedy, Oceana Street, 53rd Avenue, and 46th Avenue. And let me just say right off the bat that we are talking about repurposing parking on the routes we're proposing the protected lanes due to the narrow street widths in the grid here. And you can see that in the cross sections where it would require repurposing parking along half of each corridor. So we have the parking, the bike lanes curbside, we maintain one parking lane and then maintain the two-way travel lanes. 26th Avenue is different because it has the turn base, although it is 56 feet wide. We have to take into account maintaining those turn bays. So it still has like parking removal on one side. We tried to minimize the parking impact while bringing in protected bike lanes that maximize traffic calming. And I also want to point out that the majority of the proposed PBLs are in residential corridors that feature driveways and off-street parking options. Now I'm zooming into 46th Avenue between Oceana and Cloverdale Boulevard because we're exploring two different options here to deal with installing a PBL in a narrow roadway that doesn't fit the 54 feet criteria. So scenario A, let me see if I can use the laser pointer again. Scenario A here, we are looking into a curbside protected bike lane that will require repurposing parking on both sides of the corridor because the road varies from 40 to 45 feet. Or scenario B, where we can do a two-way bike lane that maintain parking on both sides of the street. So again, this scenario will be maintaining the parking, but it will require conversion from a two-way street to a one-way street. So those are two options that we're exploring here to maintain the protected path. We see 46th Avenue as a vital east-west connector that would feed directly into the existing Cloverdale Boulevard PBL, and of course is a vital connection to Northern Boulevard, which would provide safe passage to the other side of the park into the neighborhoods such as Douglastown and Little Neck and vice versa. Now to the standard and shared lanes of this proposal, they stand out the standard in blue and the shared lanes in pink. We understand that you're concerned about parking loss, so we're maintaining shared and standard lanes to bridge the connections between the existing and protected lanes that we are proposing. Let me do the laser again. So for 28th Avenue over here, this would be the connector between 26th Avenue that would take cyclists to John Michael's Mile. This is a very low volume residential street, so I think shared lanes are appropriate in this segment. Then the segment of Corporal Kennedy and a small segment in Oceana Street that have the most irregular widths between, it varies from 30 to 45 feet of street width. We are proposing a shared passage to bridge the gap between the protected lanes. 56th Avenue, the majority of it will be standard lanes, as you can see in this cross section, which will maintain the parking, with the exception of the segment that has medians, and we would just do curbside in that segment. For Springfield Boulevard, I talked about it extensively before in the presentation, but the majority of this would be standard with minimal parking loss. And then 69th Avenue, we would just extend the current bike facility and make that direct connection to Springfield Boulevard. Now for 33rd Avenue, I'm calling this a calm corridor where we are prioritizing pedestrian and cyclist safety. This is a special treatment that maintains vehicle access and parking, but we are calming the corridor. The aim here is to create a low-stress bike infrastructure in a pedestrian-friendly environment and to slow down vehicles. We received frequent community requests for traffic calming here in the past, but speed humps were not feasible for much of the corridor because of the driveways and curb cuts. So this quarter calming treatment that we're proposing will enhance the usage of this community street by discouraging cut-through traffic and slowing down vehicles to make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists. There's some natural traffic diverters already on this corridor, and you can see that pointed out in yellow in the map. We would try to enhance those natural traffic diverters and again reduce speed limits and make it more pedestrian safety. This is the top is an existing cross section, and the bottom graphic is a view of what it would be proposed. But of course, like, again, I know I've been showing a lot of graphics tonight, and it's difficult to imagine how that would look like in real life. So the picture here at the top is of 39th Avenue in Sunnyside, Queens. Some of you may be familiar. And I'm only showing this segment because this is the most true to what we are proposing. Not every treatment that we do in the city can be applied elsewhere, but the elements that I've been describing is what we are imagining for calming this corridor. And that includes the greenback sharrows, the greenback sharrows here to alert drivers and cyclists of the shared space. This makes a more significant stamp on the roadway. And also we would add signage too that, again, signifies that this is a shared space. There's also really significant the stamps on the roadway that show the 20 miles per hour and slowing down the speed of the vehicles to really alert that this is a safer passage, slower for pedestrian and cyclists. And we also bring more pedestrian elements by daylighting, providing neck downs and pedestrian islands, as you can see here. Some of the additional examples of traffic calming measures are here at the bottom, which we use to manage the traffic volumes and speed and make a more pedestrian and bike-friendly environment. So in summary, we want to expand the bicycle network through protected bicycle lanes that will increase the safety for all of our users. We want to maintain standard and shared bicycle lanes where PBLs are not feasible to provide wayfinding and bridge those gaps between the protected lanes that we're proposing. And we are adding traffic calming measures to foster pedestrian and cyclist safety. The benefits of this proposal is to organize the roadway so that it increases predictability of the location of the cyclists for drivers and pedestrians, to improve access to the community amenities that you have and enjoy so much. This includes creating safer and more convenient cycling to the parks, the Eastern Queens Greenway, and the surrounding neighborhoods, and closing the gaps within the bike network so we can continue building out more on-street connections in the future. So I'm going to open it up to questions now.
All right, Greta, thank you very, very much for the presentation. Very clear, very thoughtful, and I know we're going to have a lot to digest here because there's a lot of good information here. I'm going to ask committee members. I see Jenna and Stefan already have their hands up. That's like, yeah, this committee works like clockwork. Outstanding. So thank you. So I'm going to ask you to please put your hands up. I will call on you in the order that I see you. The presentation was not very long, so I think we have a good time for discussion now, to go back and forth, to understand this a little bit more clearly. But I do appreciate how much work DOT you guys put into this to address specifically the comments and the recommendations that we sent you from our work on the committee. So thank you for that. Let's get started. Jenna, please unmute yourself and join and ask your question.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Al, and hi, everybody from DOT. Thanks for the presentation. Very informative. I appreciated the maps very much. It was very easy to understand. I'm a little concerned because the board voted down to have 33rd Avenue as a bike lane. And it was expressed by myself and some other neighbors living on the avenue that they are very extremely opposed to having a bike lane going down 33rd Avenue. And I'm just wondering, since the board voted it down, why would you include that in your plan if you know this is not what the majority of the community wants, mainly the residents who live on that street?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So the initial proposal, and Greta, correct me if I'm wrong, was for 35th Avenue. And,
Correct.
and the comment, was about east-west in this area. And, when looking at the network as a whole, there is a need for a better east-west connection in this area's network, which is why the group looked at this calm corridor treatment as an alternative to the classic bike lane treatment that you may be thinking of. So a lot of the treatment that we're thinking of here is going to address many of the things that you've been concerned about for years, and you and your Civic. The cut-through traffic, the speeding issues, the non-compliance at stop signs, the people just cutting through a residential street with a school on it, and lots of children just being outside, frankly. So this treatment is not so much, and I think Greta said it the best. Like, please keep an open mind. This is not a traditional bike lane. It's a calm corridor. The idea is to make sure that with signage, with markings, with other treatments that are at our disposal, to make 33rd Avenue a low-volume residential street that is safer for pedestrians and safer for cyclists. And it could be that haven for a whole bunch of uses for the community. That's why we're trying to think outside the box and address some of the long-standing concerns. As Greta mentioned, speed bumps are not an option, unfortunately, on 33rd because of the close driveways. So that's why we're thinking outside the box.
So I saw, it looked like shallows?
Right. It's more like, wayfinding in the sense that it lets folks know that this is a safe, calm corridor that they don't have to be as worried about utilizing.
Just to talk it through a little bit, so my name is Ted Wright, I live in New York City, basically, and just to talk about this a little bit, it's kind of came out of open streets. We've started to do this a little bit more, where we're looking at streets as a little bit less automobile focused, and kind of what you're seeing here, you asked about the shares. Yeah, there are shared lanes, but we also complement with miles per hour and do heavy markings at the corners, so it tightens up the intersection and really slows folks down as they use the corridor. I think Greta said it well about why we need an east-west corridor. We thought of this as an opportunity because you kind of have some awkward transitions from one street to another. If you can pull up the map really quickly. If you see the yellow points there, if you can zoom in, if you're on a computer, hopefully you can see this, Jenna. But you see how it's not a great through street. We don't want people going through on it. So we want to tighten up those intersections and make sure people don't turn onto it unnecessarily. And if they do, then we get them to slow down. And the idea is it goes into a park. We don't want people speeding here. This is probably the right place for people to walk. Yes, and bike, but we're also not really going to put in bicycle treatments that much. We're really putting we don't really propose shadows all that much. So I will now be quiet.
So when I go back to, my members, they're going to be extremely concerned about the parking. So what can you tell me about that? It looks like it's going to remain next to the curb.
Yeah, zero parking lots here. Very minimal. There might be a little bit at corners where we have to open it up in order to shrink it down at the corners, but there will be no parking lots from my perspective. Very minimal. I always want to put in the caveat, once we get in and start doing engineering, there might be things that happen, especially those awkward transitions, where actually they should be, it should be opened up a little bit at crosswalks. But the whole idea of this corridor and the other conventional lanes that Greta showed you is zero parking loss. We're kind of putting this in a different bucket as the protected bike lanes that we were asked
look at by the board.
Okay. I have to say that I was going to say that being on this committee has, opened my eyes and my mind to to bicycles and the bike lanes. And I'm trying to keep an open mind, about this street and be constructive. But I do want to let you know there's going to be pushback from the residents of this street.
But, fair enough. I think this is something new. I'm just going to interject here. And Ted, thank you for jumping in with the support comments. I think it's important that you do that. What I'm seeing here is you're not actually instituting what we would call, bicycle lanes or protected lanes. It's just calming the corridor. Is that correct? With signage and with sheriffs.
All right.
So there's no loss of parking, there's no floating parking, there's no designated striped bicycle lanes. So in many ways, I'd say you're not actually making this a bicycle lane, although it's a sharo, it's a class 3 shared calm corridor.
The idea here would be that there's no bike lanes there.
Right.
If there was a neighborhood kid, I lived on a small block in the city, not New York, growing up, and we used to play kickball on the street. And that's kind of the way that I look at this, is like, if you could use some of the stuff that we've been using the heck out of, you guys have seen in other neighborhoods, where we're doing bike boulevards, what Greta showed you with the 39th Street, that's a lot of lines and markings. That's a lot of markings and stuff, but all that does is it slows people down. And I think that we're just making a little bit more like a neighborhood corridor, and we're kind of, from my side, I'm very much on the implementation side. The idea here is that we're like using resources for the stuff that neighborhoods actually care about, while also dealing with some of the transit issues, which, yes, it is biking. But in this case, we do want to make sure it's safe for bicycling, because that's the origin of this project. But that is not the final outcome from a neighborhood perspective.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jenna, we're going to discuss this further, but thanks for your input and thanks for asking the questions, and I think we need to study this further. Thank you. Stefan, you're up next.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your work. It's been really good. The two questions I have, the first one regards the sort of required buffer for floating parking. Now, I do understand that that might be to prevent, a car door from going out and bicyclists slamming into the car door, to have a little bit of wiggle room there. But the unprotected bicycle lanes, regardless of whether they're going to be next to the traffic lane or next to the curb, if you don't have the buffer, it's still going to deliver the same issue. And so I would think that at least you should have the slightly better option of having it, even without the buffer, having it be from the curb, where the bicycle lane would be there instead of in the street. So I was wondering if there's any other reason why that would not be possible, at least as like a trial run and like a small segment here in CB11 to see how it goes. If it's been tried before and it failed, I can understand. The second part is, especially at Springfield Boulevard, there's going to be a lot of buses there. There already are a lot of buses there, and there's going to be a lot more with the Queens Bus redesign. And the question is, how are we going to make sure that the bicycle lanes, when they interact with bus stops, don't put cyclists in a position where they could be hit by a bus?
I'll try to break those down. I have a hard time with two-part questions because my brain's soft. But the first question that you were asking, if you could pull up that section, I just want to describe a little bit about what goes into it. I think it's a really good question, Joseph. And I think it's interesting. It's not the first time I've been asked about this.
It was Stephanie.
I'm sorry, I can't see him anymore. He dropped off my screen.
Joseph took his place in the one.
Sorry. I'm bad with names too. My brain's soft. Alright. Show the section of the 54-foot line section. What goes into a PBL right there. Now, this is the bare minimum. I really say this when Greta talked about this. Any lower than this, you would be putting, it's different than a bike lane on the other side, because if a bike opens the door, you can go into traffic, because you're going with traffic there. If it's on the other side, the only place you can go is into the curb. And that's very bad. That would mean you would definitely definitely follow. If you're, and this is part of the problem with protected bike lanes, honestly, is it gives a false sense of security. Well, actually, a real sense of security, I should say. It is security, so we have to make it secure. You can't just be scared that a door is going to open up and then you hit the curb. This is the absolute bare minimum. It would probably would have a hard time in any other city other than New York even getting to this narrowness. We get a lot of complaints from advocates about this already being narrow. So as far as the context of rural neighborhood, like we are taking that into account and going with the bare minimum. As far as buses on Springfield, buses and bike lanes are a constant everywhere in the city where there's a lot of buses. I know we wouldn't be the first people that are concerned about it, but the bus really pulls right in past the bike lane, and the bus, and if you're on a bike, you have to watch out for the bus. There's corridors that see a lot more bus traffic than this, and yes, it's a concern, but it's worse of a concern if you have a bike on the roadway and you do not have any indicator that a bicycle might be traveling there, and the bus pulls over. That's why we do believe in markings, and that's why we see a 30% safety improvement on all corridors. So it might be a little bit confusing with bus ridership and with buses pulling in the bike lane, but let me assure you that there are bus lanes throughout the city where this is exactly what happens.
And I also wanted to just add to that the Queens bus redesign, we're following, where that's at in the outreach process, and of course they're not done at all yet, but my understanding is that the new proposal, and depending where they land, it actually cleans up in a lot of the repetition of those bus lanes and bus stops, so it kind of not necessarily consolidates all of the stops, but it's going to make it a much better routes for the buses that are not as convoluted in that area. But again, we'll continue to follow that redesign and that process, but it shouldn't affect because it's such a low touch treatment for the standard lane in Springfield Boulevard.
All right, thank you, Greta. I think Joe, our own Joe Marziano is next up.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, and if our reps at DOT can send this slide deck over to us to distribute to the board members after the meeting, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Joe. It will be posted online tomorrow, and we'll send you the link.
Okay, great.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, because it's going to take some more study, and we're going to work with you like we have to make it the best plan possible. Eileen Miller, please join us.
So I'd like to know where you see the lane on 56th Avenue. Is that going down to Springfield?
56th Avenue would go from Oceana to East Hampton.
So it goes straight through?
It goes
through Bayside Hills?
It goes straight through, yes.
Then what about the malls? There are malls on 56th Avenue going straight through to Luke Place. So how would you do that?
Yeah,
and that was not even on the plan, the original plan, because as I said, the residents of Bayside Hills were against having bike lanes mainly because of several different reasons going through the avenue. So I didn't see anything where 56th Avenue was going through it all. So this looks like it's something new.
This segment on 56th Avenue, and I'll pull it up right now, it's not new. That's actually something that we had in the previous proposal. Let me just show you that slide right now. A second.
Yeah, and while Beth is doing that, Eileen, the thought with the section of 56 with the malls would be to do a curbside bike lane, because it is very narrow along the curb along that area.
What I want, so there's a mall going between the whole section of the block, so there's only room for one car to go through there. So where are you going to do it? Right next to the car? I mean, that doesn't make sense at all to me.
It would be curbside. Yeah, it would be right against the curb. And
don't you think that's a little risky for the bicyclist? Riding right next, and there's only room for one car as it is, and now you're going to put a bike through there too?
It is a treatment that we have instituted in a lot of different places. 56th is, a pretty calm corridor. I travel it often myself, and it's too narrow for a vehicle to be parked safely. A lot of times what people do is they pull up onto the sidewalk so they don't.
And just that the neighborhood, and I did bring it up that they don't want any bike lanes, so you're going to circumvent that and just, I guess, do whatever. There's no room for any kind of negotiations, huh? Is that what it? Because I'll go back and tell them exactly what happened. But I'm very disappointed that they really don't want these bike lanes, and you're just putting it right through the whole community. And especially since there's a mall there, really, to me, I think somebody's going to want to get killed. I certainly wouldn't want my kids riding next to a motor vehicle on a road that small.
The new spacing of the roadway, and actually the probably, if you can see the section.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Maybe, Greta, you could zoom in.
And I'm going to look up my records. I am sure we didn't. This was not the plan. This must have been put in later. Because I was.
No, I would just say, in fairness,
And you remember that, Al? Did I not say that?
Right.
I want to say that 56 from the DOT proposal, it was included there. I do know that the board said for the part where it has the medians to not have that included in as part of the bike lanes, but we are making the point that we can't just drop off cyclists without a continuous path, because that's even more confusing. So we do understand that the medians here, limit the width of the roadway. It is 15 feet travel lanes, but already, as Al is pointing out, there is only really space for one car as they travel. So what we're doing here with the medians is just doing the markings for the cyclist, which actually is safer for the cyclist and the driver, because they're both understanding that they're sharing the road. If there's a cyclist just cycling through that travel lane without any markings, the vehicle is going to be, caught off guard more than if we do have that.
Right.
Okay,
Eileen, I just want to make one.
Wait a second. You got 46th Avenue. You got that bike lane. Now you're going to come to 56th Avenue. You got Oceana. You got Springfield. So there's no regard for the community as far as I could see. And I mean, if that's the way you want to do it, then, but I really don't think this is fair since the community discussed this at great length.
Right. No, Eileen, I want to say, we're here to be collaborative. We're here to work with the community. You gave us feedback, and we're coming back to you with feedback and our professional judgment on many of these items. So, and the last thing I want to say about 56th is having those markings there, it actually brings drivers closer to the median, which is where you want them, as opposed to, cutting corners quickly and being closer to the sidewalk side.
We were very interested in protected bike lanes and protecting the residents. So a shared bike lane, I don't think that's safe, but if that's, and then that was our major talking point, is that we really wanted to make sure that whatever lanes we put in was safe. And shared bike lanes with children and cars, to me, is not safe. And you do have a lot of children in the neighborhood. So if that's what you decide, well then, I'll bring it back to the community and let them know exactly this is your plan, and their regard for what they asked for is not going to be even entertained. So that's fine. Thank you. And thank you for your work. I know you did a lot of work on this, but I still think we have more than enough bike lanes with Oceana, Springfield. You got 73rd Avenue, Northern Boulevard, and I just think that, and now you got also 46th Avenue is in there, which is another avenue that I didn't see that we were entertaining. So anyway, I know you have other things. Okay. I'll just note it and give it to the community, and I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure you're gonna have pushback, but if that's that's what you decide. I just hope to God no one gets killed while they're
What I'll say is, we're going to continue to work with the committee and with the community board, and we're not going to just walk away from it.
We will continue to discuss, Eileen. I want you to continue to represent your point of view, and we'll continue to discuss. Ben Turner's next up.
Yes, thank you, Al, and everybody else from Turkey for presenting this plan. It looks really nice. I especially like the idea of the street calming on 33rd Avenue. It seems like it's really what our neighborhood should be trying to do, because it really seems to serve everybody. There's no loss of parking, but there's traffic calming, which will make it safer for pedestrians, cyclists, drivers, and everybody else who wants to access the elementary school, Bayside High School, John Goldman Park. So thanks a lot. I'm just wondering if it would be possible, you mentioned possibly turning one of the streets into a one-way to preserve parking. I'm just wondering if that's a possibility on any of the other streets. I can speak to that for a little bit. Usually on these streets, there is parking available, and not a ton of it. I don't want to discount the need for parking, but on the streets that we are looking at protected bike lanes, generally speaking, in my work, I do this a lot. The one-way conversion can be very problematic, especially when we're talking about a street grid system that pushes traffic into adjacent blocks. It is technically safer, so if there's something that you guys really like in our conversations and our ongoing conversations, I would be up to talking about it. I also though think that we need to be realistic about how that can be very controversial. Like one person's one way is another person's extra traffic on the next street. And sometimes you have to do it on multiple streets and you'll do it right. So this is kind of the easier way if there are places where you're really, really concerned about parking and it's like a no-fly zone, yet there is a possibility for one way. We look into it, nothing stands out in our minds right now from an analysis standpoint.
And I just want to add to that too, that 46 segment of it is something that the board had asked for to be upgraded to a PVL, and we do see again the right of connection through that corridor to Northern Boulevard. We also took into consideration we need to do further analysis for that one-way conversion there, and one of the reasons why that's the one that we're proposing is because other segments, for instance 26, it has buses, so to be less disruptive, like 46 doesn't have a bus lane, and that's something that we took into account as well. It looked like one of the best candidates to provide that passage for the cyclist that is protected, and it provided that possibility of like, can we make this a one-way conversion? But we're going to do further analysis for the traffic impact there. We just showed you the two options because that's what we're exploring, but we are committed to making that protected and both provide that protection.
Yeah, and I would just add, Ben, to that, 46 makes sense from a lot of perspectives, and there is already a segment of it that is one way, so it does kind of make sense in that regard. But it's a good question, but just to echo Ted, kind of a tough one too.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ben. Sina, you're next up.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting presentation. There's a lot to digest here, obviously. I do have a question. On one of the maps that Greta showed, there was a little, with all of the routes, on the lower right-hand of the map, there was a little pink line connecting, it looked like the Vanderbilt Parkway. I don't know if you could put up the map again. it was, I can't tell if it was the Vanderbilt, there was like a little connection. There were two dots and a little pink line. I don't know what that was. On the very right hand bottom, yeah. There's like a little pink line in between those two,
The pink line all the way to the right.
down, below, all the way, yeah.
That's existing, and that's, I believe that's the ones on the sidewalk there. Perhaps it was better, but that's existing already. It was something we put in after we put in the protected bike lanes. It was the only option on that last block to get you to Vanderbilt Motor Expressway.
So it's already in existence, it's all,
Yeah.
so they're not built, they're not adding anything there.
No.
That's why it's so faint.
Okay, because I couldn't, all right, that's what I was concerned about, that they're not adding anything on the Vanderbilt at this point.
Do you want something to be added? Is that your?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't want any,
I think Steve is trying to defend the Vanderbilt as it is.
I understand.
Thank you, I want to leave the Vanderbilt.
That's a assigned route. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, no, don't touch the Vanderbilt, thank you, okay.
All right, Sina, thank you for looking out for the Vanderbilt.
Thank you, okay.
Mike Budabin, our chair, please.
Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Just wanted to say thank you to DOT. Regardless of whatever the feedback ends up here, this is clearly a thoughtful proposal, and that's appreciated. I'll just say that having been on the board now for some time, we don't always feel like when we write letters and make proposals that people are always listening. And I'm sure you guys are going to get a wide variety of feedback on this, but for whatever it's worth, in my own personal opinion, the effort is clearly there regardless of what any individual thinks of the outcome. We're going to digest this, obviously, and so caveat everything with that. The one thing that I just wanted to say and make clear tonight, and this is sort of maybe just a public-facing comment, is you're hearing a lot of different feedback from a lot of different folks, and some of those people, some of the people on our board, obviously also represent civics, and they also represent themselves, and they also live on certain blocks. One of the valuable things that we can add as a community board is that we're encompassing the whole community here in CB11, and so that's going to be incorporated into our response as a board. The various civic associations or individuals or whatever may give you guys various feedback, and as always, there's going to be a little bit of crossover in our commentary here. But just to say it out loud, I'm sure Victor will talk more about this later on. We're going to digest this as a board and come to a view as a board and make proposals back to you guys as a board. And while there's overlap with other organizations and other individuals, and that's part of it, and part of the value of the board is that we get that input at our general meetings, etc. Those things are distinct. And so I just wanted to point that out, just that you're going to get some feedback tonight, and going forward, that isn't our formal position as a board or this committee as a whole. That will be communicated to you guys, but I just sort of wanted to say that, and also say to everybody here, I continue to appreciate the thoughtful and hard work the members of the board, the members of the community, and frankly DOT as well on this has done. I'm certainly impressed by that part so far. So thanks everybody. That's all I got. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely, obviously, everything Michael said is true. We do appreciate the effort, and most importantly, I'll say, we appreciate the back and forth, the working together, the collaboration. So we're going to continue that. This is not a done proposal yet. We're not going to vote on anything tonight, just to reiterate that. We're going to take time to study the slide deck when you share it with us and the details, and we're going to discuss it as a committee moving forward. But we really do appreciate the efforts of DOT and staff. Clearly, they listened to everything we said. Whether or not they were able to incorporate everything we said, that's a fair, debate. And ultimately, there's going to have to be a decision as to what's the best plan to move forward for the entire community. So thanks again. I echo Michael Budabin's comments. Randa Bravo, you're next up.
Hey Lander, this is Mike, man. I apologize. It's so good to see you. But we can't let you speak tonight, and that's no disrespect to you at all. But
No, at all.
because this is a committee meeting,
Sorry, my mistake, I forgot.
we welcome your input. We want to hear you at the general board meeting. Please sign up. We have to stick to the rules, and it's great to see you, but got to do it.
No worries. I was invited, so I didn't know. So thank you very much. Thank DOT for the proposal.
Yep. Thank you, Lander, for joining us. John Kelly's next up.
No, I'm sorry. It's really difficult to hear you. Is everyone having that problem?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
Okay, now we can
That's
hear
better,
you.
whatever you
That's
say.
way better.
It's good. Yeah, that is good now.
Before you sounded like a robot.
So you mentioned that you might keep with the local character of the neighborhood, and I think that might be where some of the friction is coming in with this. What we tried to explicitly say is that we want to connect kids to the parks, and connect kids to the Greenwood, to the schools that they have. For that, it's pretty much protected bike lane or nothing. A lot of what you guys have put in is a good bike lane for somebody like me, who's a reasonable cyclist, even though I don't really bike as much as I used to anymore. But we would ask for a lot of bike lanes, protected bike lanes, class 1s, and you moved a lot to class 2 and class 3, and you're going to add in many other class 1 protected bike lanes to this. So I think that that's a little bit of the rub to this. To Irene's point, a lot of this focus is really to sort of help with kids with this. And honestly, a young kid on a class 2 or on shallows is going to be pretty nervous with the drivers around here. So I think there's a lot of the context of the neighborhood. And as we all know, 2 weeks ago, a cyclist was killed in the neighborhood just south of us. So this is pretty serious. And if you didn't like some of the suggestions that we made, I can respect that. But obviously, we're not traffic engineers. But coming up with other protected bike lanes on other streets, I think would have been something that could have been a lot easier for our neighborhood to sort of understand. And it's really specific. I'm not going to speak to the neighborhood. We can only speak for ourselves, right? There are a lot of people at this meeting. I think there's a lot of community input of people that really want to protect the bike lane network. And this is not that, right? Which is, again, a little disappointing. A lot of what I think has been my struggle in understanding this was, if you can go back to the slide that had the different widths, widths of the different things. So Ted mentioned that, pretty much, other areas within the country are not going to do things like this. And that, yeah, exactly, thank you. And that cyclists do complain about 5-foot bike lanes, which is true, and definitely something that I've seen before. We do not have the same type of cycling population, especially adult cycling population, as Western Brooklyn or Manhattan, because adults of that type generally can't even afford to live here anymore. So I do not think that we're going to have a lot of demand over the 5-foot here, although if I'm wrong, that would be great. And then also find us about the 3-foot buffer, and as much as I would rather have something with less of a buffer if there was a protected bike lane there, I definitely understand the push for the 3-foot buffer. A lot of my question is going to be a little more on the other 2 aspects of this, on the 8-foot parking lane, on the 11-foot travel lane. So I'm looking at NACDO right now, and they're mentioning parking lane width should be 7 to 9 feet. So this is in the middle of that, which is fair, but to sort of say that there's nothing smaller than this, sort of, I don't understand. And then also NACDO is saying that travel lane widths of 10 feet generally provide adequate safety in an urban setting, and this is saying 11 feet. So I definitely get how we want to make things as optimal as possible, but when it means that we don't get a protected bike lane, I think sometime maybe something else needs to give a little bit. And we have a lot of streets in the area that do not have 11-foot travel lanes. I can point them out very easily. And on those streets, cars go a lot slower. So to sort of say that this 54 is the minimum, I don't, pretty much means that we're pretty much going to exclude cyclists from a lot of routes that we could otherwise put in. Oh, I'm sorry, and the last point of that is that out of all of the bike lanes that we have, the predicted bike lanes, the first ones that we asked for, only one of them is 54 feet, and you guys rejected that also. That's this 56th Avenue. So I know that, again, I'm not a traffic engineer, but like I would love a little more understanding of how we can do something to make this a little bit better. Thank you.
I can go ahead and talk about 56th Ave for a second if you could pull it up. I did not know that was 54 feet wide. Maybe that was not the calculation that I saw, but sometimes these things differ. Secondarily, this is our attempt at a network, just to talk about that for a second. Like, we have to weigh the needs of community members, and if we could put a PBO on every street. Personally, I run a bike program that I'm very biased towards those things, but I know that that would not go over very well here when we talk about the kind of parking loss that we would have to take there. As far as the point of NACTO, on a New York City standard is not, you cannot have opposing lanes at less than 11 feet. There's, you go right, we even have 9-foot turning lanes in places. But as far as the main north, I think you would actually be very hard stretched to find a place that has a double yellow line and 11 feet counter to one another. I wouldn't, if you really like it, don't bring it to my attention because engineers will erase it and change it very quickly because that would be a problem because it is a standard in New York City. Gretchen, I don't know which street 56 that I'll let you talk to the people.
Yeah, no, let me talk about that for a second and 2 points before I get to 56. So this is the revised proposal, but I'm gonna go back to the map where we got the feedback here. I was trying to put them next to each other, but for some reason it only lets me share by document, not do it next to each other. So Utopia Parkway, we're coming to make it protected. 26th Avenue, what you added here, we are making it protected. This segment of Corporal Kennedy, we're making it protected. We're making a segment of Oceana Street protected to connect to 46th Avenue, and actually we're proposing this gap, which was left open. We're connecting that and making that protected. 53rd Avenue, making that protected based on your proposal. We explained why 20th Avenue, we're actually just going to keep it shared because it's a residential street that has very low volumes. I've been there myself many times, and we think that it would be better for the residents to just keep that shared. If you do push hard for protected, I mean, it has like a lot of driveways that would actually make it a little bit difficult to make that even protected, but we thought that shared was a very good fit for this specific segment. Cloverdale Boulevard, we explained why we chose instead Springfield Boulevard and kept that standard because we did hear the pushback on Springfield Boulevard and we wanted to provide closing the gap there and again still connecting to 69th Avenue. 69th Avenue is expanding the existing standard bike facility there, and we're keeping that as standard so that it can continue being the same bike facility. Now, for 56th Avenue, this is another person had talked about 56th Avenue as well, and I know that the segment that is wider that you're talking about is is from Springfield Boulevard to 223rd Street. That it goes, because the geometry, it opens up a lot in that fork. It is pretty wide, and we do see that the potential there to do a specific SIP, that it can narrow that roadway. We kept that standard, and we can go back and look into making that protected, but we focus really on the protected corridors where we wanted to see and provide connectivity and see them as bridges where they could be like east-west and north-south. If you are asking for 56 to also be added to be protected, there is a regular width to that corridor, and we do need to talk about more, repurposing parking. But of course, we can have that conversation if you give us that feedback. And then this is again your proposal. Now let's go to the revised one. And when I did talk about maintaining the character of the community, I was only specifically talking about 33rd Avenue because this is a residential corridor, and we're like implementing a slightly different treatment where we're using a lot of traffic calming measures. And when I say maintaining that character of that corridor is to not scare anyone off thinking that they're going to get a classic bike lane there, because you just saw, the pushback that we have received from some of the folks that live there. We truly want people to open their minds to see that this will become more of a local street where we're trying to get away from discouraging cut-through traffic, maintaining more pedestrian safety, allowing the cyclists to go, and even into the proposals further is that the idea is to continue expanding it further than just within CB11.
Thank you, Chair, but just like on you were showing right there, that's not a protected bike lane network, right? That is one route to the north that doesn't really complete, and then one route to the south that does complete, with no north-south route to it that's protected. I definitely appreciate, that there are definitely concerns, and to Irene's point, around those malls, we're never going to have a protected bike lane. That doesn't make any sense, right? No. But on a very wide street like 56 that's east of the malls, it is over 54 feet wide, right? So
52 feet wide.
I'm sorry?
It's 52 feet wide.
I would measure it as 54. Okay.
According to my engineering drawings, it's 52. I'm not entirely sure it behooves us to think about it. Also, when we had gotten some pushback, that was actually the area which you asked us to remove, I believe, a portion of that. If you look back to the section, if Greta pulls up that map again, I just want to be really clear, we've all been talking very much here about how much work is going into this, and to go back and forth on this kind of thing it's detrimental to the process. I'm okay doing it, but let's make sure, John, you're welcome to reach out to me and we can talk it through. But I do feel like what we're going to kind of undercut here is the overall purpose of a plan that we're trying to get as many people on board with as possible. Because it's 56 is looking at the same 56 out that I've been looking at, or my team has been looking at, because those guys are pretty darn crafty. If we got a protected bike lane on 39th approaching the Lincoln Tunnel, we can probably get one in Queens. So, just please understand that.
I really do appreciate it, but the hard part for me is that we have had so many meetings on this, and at every single meeting, it gets cut, and it gets cut, and it gets cut, and it gets cut. And honestly, not all of them are bad cuts, right? And this is an old movement by any means, right? We have a community board. We sent you stuff to say not this, and not this, and not this. And now we have another meeting from DRT, and more stuff is being cut, and nothing else is being added. And we're going to have another vote on this next month, and probably more stuff is going to get cut. And we have a general meeting, and more stuff is going to get cut. And we've had literally dozens of meetings on this, and by the end of it, we're going to have one block of protected bike lanes.
Well, I just want to add one thing, and John, I appreciate you. You've always been nothing but a gentleman, so I just want to off the bat say we did add 33rd because we did, feel that an east-west route would make a lot of sense, and that's going to be an intensive process, for us to get that right. And when it comes down to it, Greta said it right off the bat. This is about building a spine, building the first phase of a network. We're not going to get it 100% right on the first crack. And it's important to have voices like you, voices like Eileen, to get this right. And I hear the frustration. I deal with Ted deals with the whole city. I deal with 14 community boards in Queens.
If you have 46th Avenue going straight through, then why do you have to go to 56 where there is only a small, how big is that?
Well, in fairness, Eileen, we're hearing from other folks that 56 isn't enough, and that it should be more robust than what you're even asking. So, as Victor says, the whole committee, the whole board is going to discuss this. You're going to process it, and we're going to work collaboratively with you.
That's correct. We appreciate everyone's input. John, your input's good. Eileen, keep it up. This is still a discussion phase. Al, you're right on, and Ted, I hear what you're saying also. I think there was some, when we did our analysis, and maybe Joe, correct me, Joseph Marziano, if I'm wrong, but I think we were working with some different engineering drawings, I'll call them, because we were able to assume more protected lanes than I think you guys were able to confirm. I think that's an accurate statement.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing is, like Greta said, a block section could vary, right, several feet over the course of a few blocks, and that changes the entire calculus of doing a corridor. So, as John mentioned, NACDO has their guidelines, but even if we get a foot here, a foot there, when you're dealing with the needs that we have, gaining a foot here and there sometimes isn't enough.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there seems to be that there might be a little bit of a discrepancy between the city maps that we have, the hard maps that we have on file in the office versus what DOT may or may not be working with. So that's something that we could always try to confirm and work from there. I'm sure that you guys are working based off of a digital record. What we have is hard copy maps from the 1970s. So.
Yeah. And also the hand wheel. We have the hand wheel in the back of my car, and the bike program goes out and we measure it physically. We don't just rely on what the maps say, with Queensboro Topo or anything like that.
Have you guys already done that work with the hand wheel when it comes to this current?
Yeah, the project team has been out there, and they've taken direct measurements. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you.
That's your answer.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're hearing. I think you've done a fine job in incorporating comments, but of course, you weren't able to incorporate all of our comments, and there were things that we didn't perhaps do that need to be done, like some of the connections. And we had a lot of gaps in our protected lane, which you showed. So I think we're going to continue to analyze this and work with you to make it the best it can be. Before I allow committee members to speak for a second time, is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet who would like to ask a question?
Mary Donahue.
Mary Donahue, how are you, my friend? Go right ahead.
Okay. I'm not a cyclist, but I was wondering how long, if you can tell us now, approximately how much time will it take to complete this entire project? Is there any projection?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mary. I was going to also ask about implementation timeline.
It's a good point. We're not working as fast as I would like this year. I would say that the faster we get through this process, the faster we can put this in the queue. I think that the attention that this board has brought to the project makes my job a little bit easier as far as pushing forward the markings, because it's, shows goodwill. Glass tax, we're probably talking about end of the summer, a little bit of it carrying into next year. Probably the heavier protected bike lanes will take a little bit longer. But that's still open. It still takes a while to get in the queue. We need to get approvals, and Al needs to talk to his boss, who talks to her boss, who then gives me the approval and says, okay, we're good to go.
All right, but we're June 15th right now. We can see some of this implemented certainly this year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Things that don't require, things that just markings or don't require, a lot of work.
I would say we would definitely work hard to get something in September, October, and in worst case, November. And we can talk to you guys about prioritizing that.
Yep. Yeah, we can also do that. We can, as a committee, we'll talk about this committee together. There's certain things that we can probably agree to right off the bat. And then there are other things which we'll discuss further and we'll continue working with DOT on the things that we need to work further on. At this point, I'm ready to, since I see no other first-time committee member questions, Ben Turner, you're next in the queue. Ben, are you up again?
Yes, thanks. Sorry, I'm just having trouble finding my unmute button. Just the point about 56, another point in favor of the DOT's plan is that I think I have seen kids riding on the sidewalk there on 56, and I do think that having them in the street is going to should improve their visibility because there are a lot of hidden driveways.
I think that
Eileen, you just got muted.
Yeah,
I wasn't quite finished yet.
Exactly. Just one comment, please. Sorry, Ben. I apologize for interrupting. If you have not been recognized, please do wait for your turn to be recognized. Victor will call on those whose hands raised as long as we have time. But let's make sure we allow those with the floor to speak. So, thank you. Sorry, Ben.
I do think that narrowing the travel lane, the car lane, I should say, and having cyclists in the street in a designated space is safer than having them on the sidewalk, where they're less visible to drivers pulling out from their driveways. So I do think that's a point in favor of the 56th Avenue bike lane.
All right, thanks. Joseph, Joe Montana, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had two quick questions and I just wanted to confirm. I'm trying to look at this quickly and kind of cross-reference it. I'll look at it more in detail over the next couple of days and weeks. It certainly appears that there's more Class 2 lanes in Sharrows than there were in the initial proposal, but is it a fair assumption to say that there's also more protected lanes in the initial proposal had as well?
Let me just correct that there's more protected lanes than in the initial proposal, and that means that there is less shared and standard. The initial proposal was all shared and standard.
Right, there were no protected lanes.
There were no protected lanes whatsoever.
Right.
Okay, I just kind of wanted to get that clear. I'm looking at things quick and I'm sorry.
No, understood, of course.
So I just wanted to, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Much appreciated, thanks.
This is it.
Yep. Go ahead, you finish.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right, John Kelly, you're next up.
Thanks, man, I appreciate it. And sorry that I'm being very emotional over this. I didn't bike for about 3 years, and then started about a few months ago with my daughter. And one of the routes that is on this map is the route that I use with my daughter, right? And every day I see drivers that are doing really terrible stuff, and if somebody hits me, I'm a pretty large adult, right? I can deal with that. But there's 3, right? And if we don't get this done, and if we don't get this done soon, it's going to put her life at risk, and that really stresses me out a lot, right? So us sort of having so many steps to this and continuing to lower this down without having putting something else in its place is really hard for me. After working on this for years, 10 years, right, to try to get something like this together, and now it's just evaporating a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more about where we are with Utopia and when that's coming through? We've been asking for that for a while. That's something that, as much as it doesn't really help me and my daughter, except for a very small segment of it, we help a lot of kids get to high school. And we've been asking for that for, 5 years, something like that.
We are collecting data on Utopia right now. It is going to involve traffic changes. Anything we put on there, we have to add turn lanes, so on. I don't want to get too far ahead, but we're collecting data now. That's a heavier corridor. It's a lot of work, and I would say hopefully next year we'll be able to get that to you.
All right, thank you, Ted. Mary?
Yes. A thought came to me. There are going to be proposed new bus routes coming into Queens. Are any of these bike lanes going to interfere with them? Have they been taken into consideration?
Yeah, DOT has already stated that they are working with the Queens bus redesign, the MTA's bus redesign. So they are considering that as part of their work.
Another question.
I'm sorry, Mary Kay, Stevens.
Excuse me, I have one other question. Do any of these bike lanes, go close to 73rd Avenue and Francis Willis Boulevard where the ball fields are and Cunningham Park is?
yes, that's all bike lanes over there.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, Stefan, you're next up, and then Eileen.
Thank you. So I have a couple more comments to make. I guess I want to make a case for keeping Cloverdale in addition to providing Springfield. The plan does call for bicycle lanes on both 73rd and 69th Avenues, which will be closer together than Cloverdale and the Alley Pond west barrier are. So having something like Cloverdale available as part of the bike network in addition to Springfield and the Alley Pond network would provide more options for community residents. It would connect the Alley Pond loop to Queensborough Community College more directly in a way that's more accessible for QCC students. So I would say absolutely, Cloverdale Boulevard should be something that the DOT does consider as an addition. Obviously, it shouldn't supplant Springfield Boulevard per se. There still may need to be a connection there as well. But Cloverdale Boulevard would probably be a very good connection for the Oakland Gardens community, especially since the street there is wide and would provide greater access for community residents and QCC students to go to the Alley Pond Loop. So I would recommend taking a second look at that and adding it in addition to Springfield. As for 56th Avenue, the lanes there are 15 feet wide where the medians are. 15 feet is really, really spacious. I've driven down that road where the medians are, and it feels a little easier there, actually quite a bit easier, to go over the limit there. Going 30 there is not, you don't really break a sweat going 30 there. Now, I limit myself to 30, but there's some drivers who may not do that. And, that 15-foot lane, that might be wider than some highways. So having 10 feet for the lane left for cars and 5 feet for the bicycles, I don't think that's a big ask, personally, especially considering that 10 feet lanes are common throughout New York City. Plenty of these proposals have 10-foot lanes. I don't think it's going to be a big problem. The one major issue I might see with 56 is that if that street's not paved very well, and there have been potential potholes I've remembered, going down that street. It's not as paved well. If it deteriorates, it could become a problem because potholes tend to occur at the edges of a road. I have found, so they would require extra road maintenance to make it work, but it absolutely can work. And shortening that lane down from 15 feet to 10 feet would certainly make the street safer and would require drivers at least a little bit to slow down there. To prevent there from being, speeders in that area. So, 15 foot, it's 15 feet, even with the median. So I think we can fit in a curb lane there. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue. Just to slow down the traffic, not even for the bicyclists per se, but just to keep people from, gunning it in between the stop signs.
Yeah, Stefan, I'll just say quickly, there is a traffic calming benefit to it. And that we would look to resurface before any markings because we'd have to have a nice surface to adhere to. We've done a lot of streets in Bayside Hills over the last couple of years, and what's going to follow, and just public service announcement, mostly to Joe, is after resurfacing, you're going to start seeing ped ramps being upgraded as well. So a lot of those avenues, 53rd, 56th, with the medians, you're going to see resurfacing, and then pretty soon thereafter, ped ramp upgrades. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I think traffic calming should be a goal for all the work that we do here, because I'm not out of line to say that I think all of our streets are designed for greater speeds than the 25 miles an hour that are now the standard for our residential streets. So I don't think that any attempt at traffic calming are negative. It's in fact quite a positive effect of all of this work.
Okay.
Eileen, you're next up, my friend.
Okay, I'm just going to make one more comment. I appreciate all the work you've done. But what I want to just say is that we are talking about children, young, 10 years old, 12 years old, 9 years old. We're talking about children in Bayside Hills. As community board members, we try to do what is best for all members. And some that have made comments do not live in our area. And therefore, I would ask that you respect the voice of the people who live here in regard to their children when you're making your comments. I love to ride down 73rd Avenue. I ride a bike. It's great. Plenty of room. And you know what? I'm concerned about the children here. I love to go down 46th Street Avenue. No problem. There's not a lot of children. Right here, there are children. And like I said, 201st Street and 23rd Avenue, I love to bike up there. It's nice and quiet and peaceful. I just ask that you respect the ideas of other community members when you're throwing out all your great ideas. Because in the end, we're all going to suffer if it doesn't work out for the children. And thank you for all your work. I understand it. I'm very happy with everything you've done, except for I think that this should be addressed a little better. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Appreciate it. All right, folks, it's now 9 o'clock. We've been going for about 90 minutes. Stefan, is that a follow-up question, or is your hand up for some other reason?
Yeah, just as a sort of, I guess, semi-point of order, or just like a clarification. From what I understand, children under the age of 13 are allowed to ride on the sidewalk for safety reasons. Once you turn 13, you have to ride in the street under New York City regulations. Is that correct?
Do you want to give rules to the children under whatever age? I'm talking about the general kids that are riding around the neighborhood. If they see a shared lane, they see those markings, they're going to ride out in the street. And you know what? It's not about the rules. It's about we want them to be safe. That's all, Stefan. I understand your point. You don't live in this neighborhood. So I just think it's just something you should take into consideration. That's all. You're probably right. There are a lot of rules.
Listen, all of these efforts are for street safety. Everything this committee has been talking about for years, even having, if we're talking bus redesign, if we're talking traffic interchange, if we're talking Vision Zero on Northern Boulevard, everything should be about street safety.
Right.
Right? And safety for all users. And I think this plan, not to be overlooked, incorporates a lot of positive street design, street redesign that our community really needs. All right? I've made the comment before, our community was designed primarily for the automobile. That's not an outrageous statement. And I think maybe for the first time ever, through the careful work of the members of DOT, and we've said how many times we appreciate it, they're now looking at it for other members of our community. They're looking at it for pedestrians and bicyclists. Obviously, it's a bike infrastructure project proposal. But we need to look at it for all users, and it all has to be based on safety. So I appreciate everyone's comments. I know we're all emotional about this. It's our neighborhoods. I'd be disappointed if you weren't emotional about it. I think the reason DOT is somewhat pleased that they're getting the feedback is because this committee has put a lot of, of themselves, their emotion and their personal thoughts into this. And that's a good thing. You just can't be overwhelmed by how complex this might be or might seem. These are just my comments, obviously. And we want to go forward with positive improvements that serve the best, street redesign that we can. All right? So please continue to stay with the process. And as John Kelly has mentioned, let's continue to move the process forward. All right? This is not a project that, I don't see this project implemented while I'm still around. And Ted is promising me something might happen sometime soon. Not really promising, Ted. You don't have to promise anything. Laura James, thank you for joining the discussion. Please.
Just one very short thing. I did not hear an answer to Stefan's question about the 13-year-old limit for riding on the sidewalks. If it got lost in the exchange, I apologize, but I did not hear an answer to his question.
That is a fact.
All right, thank you, Ted. There you go. Your bike design leader for New York City has confirmed. 13 and under can ride on sidewalks legally. All right. Any other questions from the committee? All right then. Seeing none, as I said, we are going to continue. We are in the process, actually, I was back and forth today with Joseph Marzliano about scheduling out July. That's right, Transportation Committee, you do not get to take the summer off, like the rest of the board does. We have several other issues, but really importantly, we are going to be discussing this project further in more detail and with your input at our next meeting. So we will have a July Transportation Committee meeting. We will be distributing, Joe, maybe tomorrow or the next day when we get them, the detailed, the slide deck as we call it, the PowerPoint presentation with all of the details. I would like everyone to review it carefully. There's a lot of information there. Okay, I do this for a living, and I had to really struggle to stay with it, because there's a lot of work here. There's a lot of detail, and I think I want everyone to understand it as well as possible, both for the entire area and specifically for the area that affects your own personal communities, so you can weigh in with those comments. All right, any other comments or questions before we sign off for tonight? Once again, big thanks to the Transportation Committee for your extra hard work and your diligence in making sure this is the best project it can be for our community. And as we've been saying all night, I hope it's come through, Albert, that we do appreciate the work of DOT. Even if we don't, in the end, agree with everything that's proposed, we do appreciate that you're listening to us and that you're carefully considering your decisions, and we're hopefully going to continue to do that moving forward. Thank you to Greta, thank you to Ted. I see Craig Chin is on here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And just real quick, we appreciate it. You guys are fantastic to work with, and we share the same goals. You know, a lot of discussion today about children and them utilizing the street, and you know that's something that drives all of us at DOT every single day. You know, we want to make the street as safe for all users and for all modes of transportation. So, I mean, you know, we take that incredibly seriously, and I hope that comes through as well.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone.